More perennials die in July than in any other month of the American gardening year, and almost none of them die from the heat itself. They die from 7 mistakes their owners make trying to help them through the heat. Honest, well-meaning, exactly what the old gardening magazine told you, mistakes. One on this list will cost you a 5F'd delphinium and the hosta growing underneath it in a single thunderstorm. One will cook the roots of a perennial bed you have spent 3 summers building. And the one at number 4 is the mistake almost everyone is making right now, and it is the one you can fix tonight before the sun goes down. After 40 years in the trial garden, here are the 7 July mistakes quietly killing your perennials, and the simple fix for each. Letting the plant go to seed. The cottage garden books from the 1980s told you to leave the flowers alone, that wildlife needs the seed heads, and that a tidy garden is not a real garden. Some of that is true in October. Almost none of it is true in July. When a perennial finishes flowering, the plant reads its own seed pods as a finished signal. Reproductive job done. Shut down for the year. Cut the spent flowers off before the seed forms, and the plant gets the opposite signal. Not finished. Try again. This pushes out another round of bloom. The plants that respond most dramatically to deadheading in July are the workhorses of an American perennial border. Salvia, catnip, coreopsis, veronica, yarrow, and most of the daisy family. Daylilies bloom one at a time, but if you snap off the dead lily every morning, the next bud opens. If you let the seed pod form, the stem stops. The fix is the simplest one on the list. Once a week, for 10 minutes, take scissors or pruners, walk the bed, and snip off anything that has finished flowering. Leave the seed heads of plants that actually need them in October, like coneflower, rudbeckia, and ornamental grasses. Anything you want to feed goldfinches over winter. But everything else, cut. I had a salvia in the back of a long bed. I think it was the summer of 2015 that I deadheaded religiously through June and then forgot about during a 2-week heat stretch in July. By the time I came back to it, every stem had finished, every flower had set seed, and the plant gave me nothing for the rest of the summer. Beside it was a catmint I had not forgotten. The catmint bloomed continuously into late September. Most American gardeners I have known over 40 years skip deadheading in July because the bed looks fine and they assume the show is over. The show is not over. It is paused, waiting for you with a pair of scissors. Watering shallow, in the wrong direction, and at the wrong time of day. These 3 watering mistakes almost always happen together, and together they kill more perennials in July than the heat ever did. Shallow first. The American gardener in a heat wave reaches for the hose, walks the bed, gives every plant a quick 3-second drink, and feels they have done their duty. The water never reaches the root zone. The water wets the top half-inch of soil, evaporates by lunch, and the roots stay where they have always been, close to the surface, dependent on the next shallow watering, never developing the deep root system that survives a real drought. The fix is fewer waterings, but longer ones. Twice a week in the hottest stretch, 20 minutes per bed at low pressure. The water has to soak 6 to 8 inches deep before you stop. A finger pushed into the soil after watering is the only honest test. Wrong direction next. You stand at the edge of the bed and aim the spray nozzle over the foliage because the plants look thirsty. The water hits the leaves, runs off the dust on the leaf surface, lands somewhere near the crown, and evaporates. Almost none of it gets to the roots. Worse, the wet foliage sits through a humid summer afternoon and develops every fungal disease in the catalog by August. Water at the soil, not on the leaves. A soaker hose threaded through the bed and turned on for 40 minutes does the job for almost no money. A long-handled watering wand aimed at the base of each plant does the same thing for free in a few extra minutes. Wrong time last. Evening watering after work feels logical, but is wrong for the same reason. Wet foliage all night invites every disease that exists. Midday, watering between 11 quart and 3 quart feels logical, but is wrong because most of it evaporates before reaching the roots. The correct time is between 6 quart and 9 quart in the morning when the soil is cool, the wind is calm, and the leaves dry by the time the sun gets hot. Show of hands in the comments. Which of these first two, letting plants go to seed or watering them wrong, have you caught yourself doing this summer? And what state are you gardening in? The pattern across the country tells me where each mistake hits hardest. Fertilizing your perennials in the middle of a heat wave. Picture this scene, because almost every gardener over 50 has been in it. The bed looks tired. The leaves are paler than they were in June. A few plants are flowering less than they did. You think they need feeding. You walk to the shed, grab the bag of all-purpose synthetic fertilizer, scatter it around the crowns, water it in, and feel responsible. What you have actually done is poured salt onto a stressed plant. Most synthetic fertilizers, like Miracle-Gro, Osmocote, or the standard 10-10-10, are salts. The plant pulls them up through the roots dissolved in water, the same way it pulls up plain water. In normal weather, the plant moves those salts into the leaves, uses them as plant food, and keeps growing. In a heat wave above 90 degrees, the plant has already shut down active growth. The roots cannot move water fast enough to cool the leaves. Adding a salty fertilizer at this moment forces the roots to absorb chemicals they cannot process, draws water out of the leaves rather than putting it in, and produces what gardeners call fertilizer burn. You will see fertilizer burn within 48 hours, crisp brown leaf edges, dead growth tips, and wilt. A perennial that was tired but alive in the morning is dying in front of you by Friday. I learned this during the long heat wave of 2012 or 2013. I had a row of bee balm looking tired by mid-June, and I scattered a fresh sprinkle of 10-10-10 around the crowns. The bee balm was dead within 5 days. 6 years of plants gone in less than a week, not from the heat, but from a fertilizer choice that would have been perfectly correct in April. The fix is the simplest possible. Stop fertilizing perennials between mid-June and Labor Day. They do not need it. They are not actively growing. The fertilizing season for established perennials is early spring and early fall, when temperatures are below 80 and active root growth is happening. If your bed genuinely looks hungry, pale yellow new growth, or weak flowering, the right answer in July is a top dressing of finished compost around the crowns. Compost feeds slowly through soil biology, instead of dumping salts on stressed roots. It does not burn. Bare soil and no mulch, cooking your perennials from below. This is the one I want you to fix tonight, before the sun goes down tomorrow, because it is the easiest fix on the list, and it changes the survival math on every plant in the bed. Bare soil in July is not neutral. It is hostile. The surface of an unmulched bed in direct American sun reaches 120 degrees by mid-afternoon. The top 2 inches of soil under that surface reach 95 degrees to 110 degrees. The shallow feeder roots of every perennial in the bed, the same roots that pull up the water and the food, are sitting in heat the plant cannot live through. The plant has no way to tell you it is cooking from below. It just slowly stops blooming, and you spend the rest of the summer wondering why. Worse, bare soil loses water to evaporation at 3 to 4 times the rate of mulched soil. Every gallon of water you put on a bare bed in the morning, 3 gallons of equivalent moisture are gone by sunset. The plant is essentially being asked to live on a desert floor. A 2 to 3 inch layer of natural shredded hardwood mulch around the crown of every plant changes all of it. The soil surface stays in the 70s even when the air is in the 90s. Evaporation drops to almost nothing. The microbial life that feeds your plants, fungi, bacteria, and earthworms, keeps doing its job instead of dying from heat. And the slow breakdown of the mulch through the rest of the season feeds the soil exactly the way fall leaves feed the forest floor. What kind of mulch matters? Skip the dyed black mulch from the chain garden center because the carbon black dye suppresses soil biology, and the wood used is usually treated construction waste. Skip the landscape fabric underneath because nothing kills a perennial bed faster. Use plain shredded hardwood, double shredded if you can find it, from a bulk yard or in bags from a real garden center. Apply it 3 inches deep around the crown of every plant, or 2 inches if the bed is already mulched and you are topping it off. Pull the mulch back an inch from the base of the actual stems so the crown does not rot. The fix takes a Saturday afternoon, but the benefit lasts the entire rest of the summer, ignoring the slugs on your hostas and the powdery mildew on your phlox. These are the 2 July problems most likely to wipe out a beloved plant before you notice you have a problem. Both of them explode in warm, humid weather. Both are easy to control if caught in week 1, and both are nearly impossible to fix once they are established. They are grouped together because both demand the same skill, catching the problem in the first 7 days. Miss week 1, and you are treating an emergency for the rest of summer. Slugs. First, on hostas. Walk past your hosta bed in the early morning in mid-July and look at the leaves closely. If there are pencil eraser-sized holes between the veins, ragged edges, or a slimy trail across the soil, you have slugs. They feed at night, hide under the leaves, and mulch by day, and work on the schedule of a slow assassin. A small colony reduces a mature hosta to lace within a week of humid weather. The fix is straightforward, and you have to act in the first week of seeing damage. Beer traps work. Shallow dishes of cheap beer set into the soil at slug level, refreshed every 3 days. Iron phosphate slug pellets, sold as Sluggo or Sluggo Plus, work without harming pets, birds, or beneficial ground beetles. Avoid metaldehyde-based products that are toxic to anything that eats the slugs afterward. Hand-picking in the early morning with a flashlight works if the infestation is small. Then there is powdery mildew on phlox and bee balm. By mid-July, the lower leaves of garden phlox and older bee balm cultivars develop a chalky white film. Within 3 weeks, the entire plant looks like it was dusted with flour. Within 5 weeks, the lower foliage drops, leaving a 5 ft stick with sad flowers on top. The fix is early prevention. The week you see the first white film on a single leaf, start treating. A spray of 2 tablespoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of horticultural oil, and 1 gallon of water applied to the underside of the leaves once a week prevents further spread. It does not cure existing infection. Cut off any leaf that already shows the white film and put it in the trash, not the compost. Long-term, replace older varieties with cultivars bred for resistance, like David Phlox or Jacob Klein bee balm. These plants are not expensive, and a single switch ends a problem you have been spraying for years. Planting or transplanting perennials in the middle of July heat. Every American garden center holds a July perennial sale with signs saying up to 50% off. The reason they are on sale is that the garden center cannot keep them alive in their pots much longer, and the gardener walking out with 3 full carts is about to discover the same problem in her own yard. A perennial planted into hot, dry soil in the middle of a July heat wave does one of 3 things. It wilts within 3 days because its small root ball cannot draw water fast enough. It develops transplant shock because the soil it came from was cooler and shadier. Or it dies outright within a week because the feeder roots cannot establish in 95-degree soil. Wilt, shock, dead, 3 roads to the same destination. I have watched gardeners lose $40 worth of perennials by the end of the second week. I have done it myself, like the summer of 2005, when I could not resist a $3 bare-root Japanese iris that was dead in 4 days. The fix is timing, not technique. Late August through October is the correct planting window for perennials in most of the United States. The soil is still warm enough for fast root development, the air is cooling, and autumn rains do half the watering for you. Spring planting works, too, from late April through early June. If you absolutely must plant in July, do 3 things. Water the root ball thoroughly in its pot before taking it out. Dig a hole twice the diameter of the pot and water that hole until the water stands. And plant in the cool of evening, never in midday sun. Then water every other morning for the first 2 weeks. The garden center is not going to volunteer this information because the perennials would still be on the lot, and not in your trunk if they had. Letting tall perennials go into July without a stake. Delphinium, tall phlox, peony, the taller varieties of Rudbeckia and Helenium, Joe Pye weed, and hollyhock. Any perennial that grows past 3 ft and produces a heavy flower head at the top needs support. Every American summer has the same weather pattern. Hot, calm afternoons through the first 2 weeks of July. Then a thunderstorm with 60-mile-an-hour gusts at 9 at night. By morning, the 5 ft delphinium that took you 3 seasons to establish is snapped at the base, lying across the hosta below. Taking both plants out in a single weather event you could not have prevented, but absolutely could have prepared for. A stake the size of a bamboo pole driven into the ground next to the plant in late May, with twine looped loosely around the stem at 1, 3, and 2 to 3 of mature height, holds the plant through any storm short of a tornado. By the time you can see the plant needs staking, when the flowers are open and the wind catches them, it is too late. The stem cannot be tied to a stake without breaking what is already leaning. Stake in May. Stake before you can see the need. Stake the perennials you would mourn most. That is the entire fix. These are 7 July mistakes I have made, watched fellow gardeners make, and quietly pulled dying plants out of beds because of. The first 4 were what the magazines told us to do, which was wrong. The next 2 we skip because the right answer takes work. The last one we leave for next summer every June, and every July we lose something we cannot replace. Drop a comment with the word July if your perennials are struggling and include the number of the mistake you were making. I read every one. If these gardening insights change the way you look at your summer beds, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the horticultural history and practical wisdom that others try to bury. Let's cultivate a better future together. Our next garden treasure will be revealed soon.